What's up, y'all? It's Yogi Rich. I'm introducing a brand new show called Session. Really, it's just a conversation between two people. Sometimes it'll be a solo conversation, um, but it's just a brief one, as we talk about a couple different topics. We talk about life. Oftentimes, probably I'll be sparking a J, and so will that with which I'm speaking to. So that's sort of the general idea behind Session. It's just a second for us to kind of get off our chest what's important to us, what's going on in our lives, a moment for us to connect, um, to show what real conversations are like between just the average 30-year-old person just trying to figure out this thing called life. To me, we only have this brief life. It's not a coincidence that we don't know what happens after we leave here. It gives us a ton of opportunity to be faithful about the future. I hope that our grandchildren or great grandchildren or 10 generations down the line get to just see some of us speak in our current time and see that we're probably going through similar things that they will. I wonder, I wonder if we'll ever really get to understand the magnitude of one human life. So I want to shed light on all of them and share with you why I think these people are so special and why you'll find them special too. So yeah, let's get into it. What's up, y'all? First, I want to say I'm so grateful that you're here listening to this podcast. If you do have a J, if you got something to spark, light it up with me. This book I've been reading recently really makes me think about how important routine really is. I think oftentimes we don't think that habits are being formed without our conscious admission, but habits are always being created. When you act in a certain way, on one day, at that same time the following day, you'll be inclined to do that same activity or that same sensation that you're feeling at a certain time, you'll be inclined to chase that same sensation at the same time the following day. Even more so, but right when you wake up and right before you go to sleep, and I would even say around naps too, your brain is very supple, and the things that you do around sleep are extra magnified, extra sticky. So oftentimes when it comes to the idea of habit reformation, when it comes to creating a better schedule, tackling the sleep, tackling things around sleep, are usually what's most important. And it's also interesting how in our society today, oftentimes we struggle with sleep. And usually that's because of what we do right before we go to sleep and right after we wake up. Hmm. So when I'm looking at life, it seems like sleep is really probably the secret weapon. It's the great coordinator, the great coalescer. It takes the ideas and the things that we learn in the day and it brings them together in more creative sequences. It also gives us an opportunity to really just have a complete experience outside of our typical physical mental frame where we're living in this fantasy world for a few hours or where time space just ceases to exist. So sleep is this really magical tool that we have. And what I've noticed and what's taught and often on a lot of the schools of thought is the importance of what you think, what you say, what you pray right before you go to sleep. In this new modern world, I think that there's some more science that emphasizes like sort of windows of time before the sleep, like right when you wake up and right before you go to sleep, there's like a a waking and a settings phase in which you can do many activities to magnify um the potency of positivity in your life when it comes to redirecting your mental space through intentional habit setting in the morning and in the evening. So, starting with the morning, I think the morning is really the most important. I find that it supports more optimism to be up in the morning, to see the sun rise or be up soon after it, and experience sort of the natural rhythm of the day, that slow rising to medium to moderate activity to intense activity around noon to rest. So, in the morning, first and foremost, when you wake up, when your eyes open up, there's going to be like a 20-minute time period before you're like really up and when you're up. Over time, this might shift and change to where you can wake up and feel alert. But generally speaking, for those first 20 minutes, you're going to go from like barely asleep to completely awake. All right. So when you set your morning alarm clock, or when you decide to wake up in the morning, or when you just allow yourself to wake up in the morning, have an understanding that when you first open your eyes, it is expected to feel groggy rather than resisting that sensation. Just go with it. Use that time to mantra. Use that time to kind of concentrate the mind on one thing. As soon as you wake up in the morning, that's a great time to set an intention for the day. So in order to set an intention for the day, you should have an intention for the week or the month or the year or several years, something that you're working on in some arena, whether it's a physical objective, a financial, a spiritual, a mental, emotional, relationship, some sort of objective, something that you're working towards for that day. So if it's in the realm of industry, you could say you are well connected and influential. Or if it's in a financial, you could say you are wealthy and generous. If it's physical, healthy and pure. These are just different examples of like different affirmations or intentions and intention, or a phrase or a sentence, and just try to repeat it, right? So take advantage of the stillness of the mind. And if you are able to, in your space, just stay still rather than starting to engage in any anxieties of the day. Just make sure that the first 20 minutes of your day, whether you're laying down, is you choosing exactly what it is you'd like to see out of your day. That way, that intention, that fluid state really starts to sink into your subconscious. If you have a meditative practice in the morning and you rather get up and maybe sit up in seated meditation, the first 20 minutes are also great for that too. Sometimes your body's not fully awake and it's a little bit difficult to do that. But let's say your alarm goes off and you hop out of bed and you sit down in meditation and you allow yourself to wake up in meditation, you can still do the same thing. Once you're out of that 20-minute phase, pick something that's important to you to do first. So it could be either clean, it could be like clean the body, it could be maybe clean up your general space. Maybe you get out of bed and immediately clean the bed. Maybe it is reading something that's uplifting, whether it's some sort of scripture, something else. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's cuddling with the dog, or if you have a puppy or just a dog or a pet in general, spending some time with another living thing, whether it's a kid too, maybe just watching something sleep. I don't know. Maybe it's going for a walk outside. Maybe it's a little bit something more difficult, like, a cold shower, or you have a sauna or access to some sort of exercise. But after that initial 20, or an actual seated meditation practice, or yoga practice, or some sort of physical practice that gets the blood moving. But pick something that you enjoy doing and or that's challenging for you to do, that you would like to see more of in your life, and spend at least the next 30 minutes concentrating on that, any of those things. You can set a timer for 30 minutes. Whatever time you don't spend in that 30 minutes, you can allow yourself to close your eyes. But as soon as those 30 minutes are up, it's time for you to switch activities. Cool. When you're done with that, you pick a different you pick a different activity. Any of the list that I said before, anything that resonates with you. If you're doing like an hour-long workout, then this can be another 30-minute segment of the workout, but switch it up a bit. If you're doing more of a strength piece, switch it up to a more conditioning piece. Maybe switch from like stretching to calisthenics or something different like that. Or you switch from journaling to reading or whatever it might be. But pick something that is different, but it still resonates well with you. So have this hour and 20 minutes be steady every day. If you can't reach it for a day, that's okay, but just indulge or not indulge. Try to do at least one of the practices, and then for whatever other time period that you have, just try to be as present as possible. The default practice is always just concentrate on the breath, concentrate on the breathing. So that's always accessible too. So I would say the first hour and 20 minutes, the first 80 minutes are critical. From that point forward, you really have a freestyle option. You know, maybe it's time to shower, maybe it's trying to clean up something different, maybe it's time to do something different, whatever it is. But just that first hour and 20 minutes, keep that sacred and develop the capacity, the space to move up to 2 hours. Those first 2 hours are completely yours to do what you need to do. That's our goal. So once you've done your morning routine, this is usually when life starts kicking. Maybe you've got to go to work. Maybe you have some obligation with your children or your family. Maybe there's something else that's going on in your life, maybe an appointment. Um, when you give yourself at least these 80 minutes to 120 minutes in the morning, at the very least, you can go into these experiences knowing that you're as good as you're going to be. You're at your best for that day. Whatever they get at you, but you know that you've done your part. And I think that thought alone, that thought process alone is a very uplifting one for when you're moving through the world. Let's say there's breakfast. I'm going to consider breakfast anything that's consumed. That includes water. So when you first wake up, in those first 80 minutes or so, water, tea, coffee, whatever it is that's in your routine, liquid wise, I would start drinking that gently. If you have a physical routine where you feel like you're going to get your stomach mixed up, then just wait until after you're done. But just make it a practice that you're gently introducing things into the body in the morning. That also just gets the body cleansed of liquid. So I forgot to mention juices too. Like if you get organic juices, gentle teas, coffee or cacao, or that thing is already in your practice, you can engage that. And then, just water. Water's the best. Lemon water, cucumber water, whatever. After you're done with your breakfast, I'd like to say, like, give yourself like an hour time. Maybe you're doing something light. Maybe your breakfast is like a liquid. Maybe you smoke like me. Like maybe it's like a J. Some people are still smoking cigarettes. Maybe you smoke cigarette. Maybe you have like your cigarette and coffee in the morning. But what I'd like you to emphasize is that make sure that you're doing your practice, your morning practice, away from your phone and in a sober mindset. So don't like chug the coffee and then start the meditation. If you're going to do any of these things, sip them along the way. Take your time. Maybe have a little bit before maybe your morning shower, have a little bit after. Space it out. If you're going to do it in those first 80 minutes to 2 hours. And then after that point of view, after that time, then you can say you have your formal breakfast. If you're the type of person who really does have a breakfast, then you go ahead to eat. Let's say you don't really want to consume anything in that first 2 hours. Now would be a good time to sit down and have your coffee. Like me personally, I like to like kind of wait until after those 2 hours are done. Usually I'll try to get like exercise in. Maybe I'll go to a class or do some sort of workout. So after that workout's done in the morning, then I'll maybe have a cacao or go on a like a walk / jog with my dogs or do some sort of workout. I might do that first before I like have anything to drink. I try not to drink. I try not to eat solids in the morning. That's just my personal choice. Some people enjoy that. I would say if you're in a real physical job or you're in a demanding job, eat more, just pay more attention to the amount of toxins that are in your food and just have as least amount of toxins as you can. That's the main emphasis. So you're having your breakfast, you maybe you're doing things, maybe you're multitasking. When you are eating, it's very, very important what your mind's centered on. So if you're like reading email messages from the person you don't like, or reading texts, or having a phone call that you're not enjoying, don't eat, don't drink. Just wait until you're in an emotional state where you're calm again, so that with what you're consuming isn't getting mixed with that energy. If you have a meditative practice, a prayer practice, if you just want to practice more mindfulness and more presence in your life, before you consume anything, pause for about, I don't know, 10 seconds to a minute to just be thankful for what it is that you're consuming. When you have that attitude towards your food, that food is what you're made out of. So there's a cyclical relationship in which you express gratitude towards your food and you express gratitude toward your own self. And you don't have like such a negative aspect and point of view on yourself. And it also changes your point of view on the food that you're eating. I mean, it's gonna make you second guess certain food choices or drinking choices or smoking choices when you approach these things as being nourishment to the body and something that you want to be grateful towards. And it's hard to be grateful towards something you know that's harmful to you. Um, and then by extension, it'll be difficult for you to eat that. Depending on the type of day that you have and the work that you're in, maybe you're driving and drinking your breakfast and doing your morning thing, whatever. Always give yourself at least a 5 to 15 minute, aim for 12-second mental break, mental recharge. You have breath work in your practice. Maybe you read a book for a second. Maybe you do something calming, just go for a nice walk. Something that clears your head for 5 to 10 minutes before you start your quote unquote shift. Whatever it is you think like your next phase of work is, before you step into that appointment that might be a few hours long, or that meeting, or hopping into the office. Make sure you give yourself a little bit of time right before you do that to be in a centered space. From personal experience, like, I tried to make it a practice whenever I was in my car for the last 15 minutes of my drive, I would meditate. And typically that meditation would just be like deep breathing. And through that deep breathing, I would just, assign a mantra, or pay attention to my breath, or add a visualization, or something in there that will calm the mind. And whenever I would walk into, oh, and as I'm doing that, of course, like all these miscellaneous thoughts might pop into my head, even like things that I thought were practical, like, where am I going to park at? And, who am I going to talk to when I get there, sort of plotting out the steps. But what I realized was when I started to approach um, work that way, or my shift that way, I'm using that term loosely, but my shift of service, I would be in a mental state where I was able to respond in fluid flow with everything around me, rather than assuming judgment and having tensity. And when you're in that mental state, people respond in kind. They're easier on you, they're easier on themselves. So that like lever of judgment in them's turned down when you have it turned down within yourself. And just practicing meditation, it's not going to be easy at first. It's going to be difficult. So I used tools. I had like a breathing app. I think it was called Breathing App, and it would do a 6 second. It could do like 4, 5, 6 second like inhale, exhale paces to a sound. So I just breathed with that sound. There's certain songs that I like that were at a 6 second, 7 second, or 8 second pace. Maybe somewhere at 5 seconds. So I could just breathe along to those songs too. So I'm jamming out, I'm breathing slow, and I'm like keeping my mind centered on something. And through the breath work, I would say just breath work as a practice, having it as something that you do specifically, is extremely beneficial. It builds respiratory health, and having it as a habit in your life, um, even if you're a smoker like me, um, it can help a lot. If you're in any athletic position, if you're a singer, if you feel like you just want to increase your lung capacity, if you want to feel more clear, and it also helps get a lot of toxins out of the bloodstream, and like breathway is your way to go. So I would say if you were to wake up, this would be by the fourth hour you're up, you're at least doing a little check-in. Uh, you are doing some sort of deep breathing, some sort of walk, something that centers you, that's short. Cool. Whenever it is that you have lunch, I advise like 15, maybe 30 minutes before that lunch to do something that calms you, that centers your attention, that centers your mind. Sometimes when you're like working on the job, on a job or whatever it is, it's very difficult to find like time to yourself before your lunch. So if you're able to, before you go to decide to go to lunch, like just to go on a walk, or like before you hop in your car, go on a walk. If it's too hot to do that, go on a walk around the building that you're in, go on a walk around your house, go on a walk around the neighborhood. If you can just sit in seated meditation, even better. You can just sit in your chair and set like a 7 to 12 minute timer, then to give yourself some time to deep breathe. Maybe you've been sitting at a desk all day. Maybe you need some time to stretch. Give yourself 12 minutes to stretch, 15 minutes to stretch, and then get your food. Think of food more like sex. Like if you were to make food more of an intimate experience that you're having within yourself, then that'll really help add a lot more logic to the thought processes around what you eat. Like, you're not just going to go into this experience all tense and tight and frustrated. You want to be loose and open. You want to be receptive. You want to be easy. When you accept this food into your body, it's all important. And I think when you look at your life, when you look at this principle of evolution, whether we plan it or not, we're evolving, right? So what you spend your time doing, what you how you spend your life is setting up the next generation to be more adapted to that type of lifestyle, right? So when you have more inactivity, less thoughtfulness, and more impulsivity in the life, then that will adapt the next generation to have more of that within itself. So however you can add more instances of flexibility and fluidity and stillness and calmness in your life, the more that our future generations will benefit. Moving away from lunch, after you've eaten lunch, whatever that lunch might be, I would also advise like your lunch be your biggest meal. And as you start to dabble with fasting, intermittent fasting, I would advise that lunch be your largest meal. It might take some time to shift the appetite to wanting a larger meal at lunch. But when you think about like your day, you want to give yourself as much productive time as possible to digest your food. And when you're digesting your food, you don't want this food to cause you to be extremely lethargic. Food is very much a drug, and the magnetism of your life, um how your word is taken, how your intention is conveyed, how your passion is conveyed, is through vitality, through power. And when you're eating foods that make you very tired, that draw down on you, that make you feel like you really need to sleep for like a couple hours, that like make it hard for you to make sound decisions, that food has a cumulative effect on your life, and that's going to draw the capacity for you to build the lifestyle that you'd like to live. So as you're eating very slowly, you're paying attention to what you're eating real foods that are within your palate and are also cooked well and are fresh. You also want food that's like very much like easily digestible. As you're eating it, it's not causing a lot of bloating, a lot of gas. It's not causing a lot of mucus. It's going to take a long time of trial and error to find out what foods these are and aren't and what quantities they are for you. But start the experimentation today. And when you go through this process, eating well, eating slowly, your stomach is a massive organ that takes a lot of energy. So give yourself some time to rest, say like 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes. Just do something easy, do something calm. If you can just go for another gentle walk, if you can just lay down for a moment or sit for a while, Maybe have a light conversation. Then you can move into that. And then after that, it's like, it's up to you for the next few hours, however you feel energetically, whatever else is on your schedule. Give yourself more time to, uh, live your life fully. And then sort of when you're, quote unquote around dinner time, same thing as lunchtime. Is your body open? Usually dinner time is after you get off work for a lot of us. So if you've worked, now would be a good time to exercise since your food has had a few hours to digest from lunch. Get a good exercise in, whatever that is. I would advise like a yoga class or something to get your body moving. And then after that, give yourself some time for stillness, just like before eating, 5 to 15 minutes, and then consuming the food. Always thanking the food, being grateful for the food, and feeling prosperous that you have enough food for yourself and food to share. If you aren't eating a dinner, like you drinking water or, a light nighttime tea or evening tea, something like that, like all that does great. Um, and then it's like, this just resets you for your evening, what I call the shift of fun, This sets you up to have time. And I would also say, depending on your sleep schedule, like at around the 5 to 6 mark, if you know that you usually don't go to sleep till 11, like definitely give yourself some time to just lay down and rest. I found that just laying down still and resting has the same like regenerative effects as napping, even though you might not fall asleep. So try to lay still, flat on your back, maybe face down in a comfortable position. Maybe just set, like I said, just set a timer and practice just being in that space of physical stillness, concentrating on one thing, and just sort of enjoying that rest. And when you slowly get up, you might even have that same like 0 to 20 minute time period, like when you first wake up, where you're a little bit groggy, a little bit slow, but then eventually you'll sharpen up again. So when your body's asking for rest, it's important to listen to it, to give it some time to rest, and don't assume that you know how long you'll need to sleep for just because of the urge of sleepiness that you're hit for. Like sometimes you might get sleepy for a second and you're like, oh, I can't sleep right now because if I fall asleep, then I'm not going to wake up for 2 hours. When in reality, if you actually just practice that urge, and even if you set a timer, like it might only be 5 minutes. You might set a 7 minute timer and wake up on 3 minutes on your own just because you really didn't need that much. And this force that's asking you to sleep understands the life that you're living. It's you. So having faith in yourself to know that you already have a system of homeostasis that's always acting on you and ready to promote you. And then when it gets to sleep, so right before bedtime, whatever that bedtime is, do the same 80-minute to 120-minute kind of backwards clock and think about what you're doing. Remove screens from you. I always add, if I didn't mention this in the morning, same thing. Don't use screens in this first 80-minute to 100 to first 2 hours period, time period. Don't watch TV. If you need to use a screen, point the screen up or away from your face. If you have like sort of like a red screen or something like that, that works too. But just don't look at the light directly. Briefly use the screen. Try to check what time it is. Check what maybe the weather might be if you're getting dressed. But you're not interested in anything that connects you to the world. Your only interest is connection to silence and stillness. So when you're doing your evening routine, try to put your phone in a space that's physically away from the bed, that's physically away from like the living room or any space where you typically would use your phone in the evening. Just have it placed somewhere else. Out of sight, out of mind works great. And then say, I'm not going to grab my phone again until either the next morning or maybe to set your alarm once you've finished these, like your next 3 activities. So whatever your morning 3 activities were, try to mirror them in the evening.